so close, so very, very, very near. This movie is infinitesimally close, within a pinky finger's length of being a real, genuine, honest-to-God cult classic. As though this may sound mildly absurd, this movie, He-Man, Masters of the Universe, is one of the most sophisticated and philosophical movies I have seen in a very long time, made all the more so and brave as well by the fact that it addresses a topic and a question that has been de facto taboo for nigh on 30 years. Namely, what is it to be a man? And what is masculinity? Now, I know that apparently the movie is not doing very well at the box office, which does not shock or surprise me in the slightest. It is a He-Man movie in 2026. We've somewhat missed the peak popularity period of He-Man here by about 40, 50 odd years. I'm mildly shocked and surprised this movie even exists, and I fear that the only reason it does exist is because of what was revealed in the post-credit scene, which, this shouldn't be much of a spoiler as I imagine is all over the internet by now, and it's got nothing to do with the actual movie, but they're making She-Ra Princess of Power as well. Meaning that even in a movie dedicated to the question of masculinity, we still have it all basically just be build up to the real female hero. But oh well. So, ignoring that, because it technically doesn't have anything to do with this movie, He-Man, Masters of the Universe is so close to greatness. So, it raises the question, what is masculinity? What is it to be a man? And it approaches it and answers it in a surprisingly succinct and effective fashion, even managing to deliver a good old-fashioned lesson at the end, like the old cartoons and TV shows of yesteryears, where the purpose was something greater than to entertain, where the entertainment was a means through which to communicate a valuable moral lesson, something this movie does, and with surprisingly little judgment. That is the most important part. In the last 30-odd years, you could not discuss the topic of masculinity without degrading it, without lessening it, without adding in a qualifier, or addressing it as toxic or destructive. You could not have an unrepentantly positive view on masculinity, and this movie does. 98% of the time. What ruins what could have been a fantastic movie is the fact that it just will not get out of its own fucking way. Every time I was sat there so many times to sing the don't subvert expectations, just play it straight up, just deliver it as you know it should be delivered. And on crucial times, it does actually do so, but equally often, there is a moment of serious gravitas that is spoiled by a joke, and always at the expense of the male characters. Universally, they are always the butt of the joke, never the women. Okay, so I don't want to spend too much time talking about this particular aspect of it, because I'm more interested in the masculinity question, but is the movie progressive? Well, it has race swaps galore, it's got a few gender swaps here and there, etc. It doesn't make the best use of the available characters in the He-Man universe. You get like 10 seconds total of Orko and Battlecat, that's about it. Even Cringer is barely in the movie, and especially when it would make a tremendous amount of sense to have him in there to confirm that Adam is Adam as he's sent through a portal to Earth, and Okay, so Adam also works in an HR department, and there was some worry initially seeing Adam with pronouns on his little desk, whether or not it would be a progressive take on He-Man. It is not. It is, if anything, it's taking the piss out of modern-day progressive HR culture. It presented it as weak, as limp-wristed, as bureaucratic and impotent, as unimportant, and something that should be cast aside in favor of rediscovering what one's masculinity means to men. So it has the skin layer thin parts of wokeness that are simply unavoidable in modern day entertainment, but it is far more so focused on the masculinity question. So without trying to spoil too much here, this is the great spoiler. The villain loses in the end. There you go. I hope you haven't been too shook by that revelation. But there is a point where He-Man finally gains his powers, and he is actually competent, which is weird to see as well. Adam is played very, 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 very well. Adam is supposed to be a bit weak, a bit unsure of himself, a bit cowardly, a bit without direction. He's supposed to be a little fumbling and not devoid of confidence in essence, although sadly they do not play at all with Adam's secret identity, which I think is a massive missed opportunity, because honestly that was one of the best parts of Adam and He-Man's backstory, in my opinion, the divide between Adam and He-Man. But when he becomes He-Man, he doesn't become a different person, which he should, in my opinion. He-Man and Adam should not be quite the same character, and here they are. But he gains his powers, and he immediately understands how to use them. There is none of that cringe dumbass like, oh, I've got superpowers, I'm so confused, period. He gets right in there, starts winning fights, beating up the bad guys, who have also been effectively established to be dangerous, which far too many goddamn franchises skip. We need to know that the villain is actually powerful for the hero to defeat him to mean anything, so good job on that. The costumes too are pretty damn nice, and the sets too are quite good. My only real complaint is, again, we don't really get the most out of the characters. They should have used a different cast, and we could have seen more of the He-Man universe, but what we do see is quite well delivered. When he gains his powers, they are indeed overwhelming. He demonstrates that he now has an enormous potential for violence. He is super strong, he can beat the shit out of all of the bad guys, but the big thing comes up here later on in the movie, when he regains his powers after a brief moment of doubt, as this is all about self-discovery. It is confidence, and this is very much so speaking to the modern man as well, wondering, is the power something that is given to me? Must I be granted this authority? Must I ask somebody for permission? No, the power is within you. And it's a cringy line, and delivered in a cringy way as well, but it is very topical for what we have and can currently see in our modern day society. And when He-Man then rises to his full power, there is a brief scene where he decides to try and have a dialogue with Skeletor. This is a bit of a reminder of his HR background on Earth, how he tries to solve things with words rather than with force, even as he has the potential and the power, the potential for violence, to enforce his will upon Skeletor. He chooses instead to try words first, and initially, this comes across again as HR cringy, but it delivers another important lesson, namely that Skeletor is actually a villain. I know, weird, the man with the skull face is evil. Indeed, he's unrepentantly evil. He's not misunderstood, he cannot be redeemed, he cannot be fixed, he hates you, and he wants you dead. Which is another, yet again, a very clear mirror of our current day society, where we do need to recognize that there are actually certain forces out there that are inimicable to a reasonable modern society, that cannot coexist with us, that will not coexist with us, and only desires the death of our current society. That is their goal, that is their purpose. They state it, they reiterate it, they make no effort at all whatsoever to hide it, and we have met it at every turn with an open palm, asking for dialogue as it has been slapped away. Until we have now arrived at the position that I've iterated upon multiple times previously, that the only solution is indeed escalation and escalation, until the other side realizes that it can no longer be the only one setting the board and putting things in motion. When Skeletor makes this clear to He-Man, he no longer hesitates. He understands that, okay, the time for speaking is over. This is not a conflict that can be resolved via dialogue alone. He has attempted to be peaceful, and Skeletor mocks him that he is incapable of using force, that he is weak, and He-Man simply responds that he is not weak, he simply prefers not to use force, as he proceeds to beat the shit out of Skeletor in a very one-sided and satisfying climactic final fight. The movie expands upon this at length. It even has a little bit of a cringe final moment where it brings in Orko for 5 seconds to be like, oh, by the way, this was a lesson about masculinity, in case it has somehow just flown over your heads, I do suppose. Then again, it almost feels like a kid's movie in certain ways, so I guess that was for the younger ones in the audience, to be like, you can be a man and strong with having a balance of authority and force, etc., etc. But it is very, very clearly speaking, maybe unintentionally, as I have a hard time believing that this could possibly be a product of the modern day Hollywood era. Maybe it's another Barbie, in essence, where you have writers here that believe they're presenting something different, but end up actually creating a very masculine story, as we saw with Ken. He-Man is that. For all the times, and there are far too many times, when the movie just cannot help itself but make serious moments into too much of a joke, and make Adam into too much of a joke as well, as even when he has proven himself to be Prince Adam, he's still treated with a modicum of mild hostility to just kind of nonchalantness by those around him. Whereas in reality, the correct response upon seeing, oh, the long-lost prince, the savior that has been promised, the man with the sword of power has come, would be to fall to their knees and praise him. Instead, all of the characters remain kind of just asshole-ish around him, except for Cringer, which is nice, I suppose, as at least his cat recognizes him, but okay. The question of what it means to be a man has been a very, very difficult one to answer recently, because it has been so very long since we've been called upon to actually explain what that is. Entire generations now have grown up without any healthy male role models, and the closest they get is the action heroes of the 90s, who of course also lean too far into the more masculine, toxic masculine stereotype, if you will excuse me using the opposition's language there, where this movie instead presents this not as the ability to commit violence, which can absolutely be necessary in being a man, but it is the purpose for the violence and the force. As Man-at-Arms says, if a man comes towards your family with a sword, what do? He-Man answers, fight him, and he says, no, you protect them. That is the important lesson. To be a man is to be a protector. Masculinity is about knowing when to wield authority and indeed in extremis violence when called upon to do so, while simultaneously being willing and able to avoid that conflict when possible. It is a very topical question and point to put forward in our current day society, as this has gone undiscussed for far too long, and to see this raised and answered so relatively well too in a He-Man movie, genuinely kind of blew my mind. And despite what is almost guaranteed to be awful box office sales, I am almost sure this is going to become a massive hit movie post-cinematic release. It is definitely going to be a major thing within our sphere, and I can near guarantee you that the overwhelming majority of commentators on my side of the aisle will probably be putting forward their own analysis on this movie very, very soon, because this is absolutely our kind of movie. It is a right-wing movie. It is one that presents a positive view of masculinity, utterly devoid of the usual progressive but and adding ons to masculinity that tries to drag it down. And if the movie could just have stood on that, as it really feels as if throughout the movie, they're looking at this really good and clever message and thinking, this isn't gonna pass Hollywood, is it? We've gotta throw in a joke there. We've gotta make fun of Adam a little bit. We gotta have Teela be the guy who rescues him to begin with. We gotta take out all of the jokes at Teela's expense, obviously, and we've gotta throw in a couple of jobs and barbs here and there at He-Man and the other characters. In fact, one of the most annoying things is all of the named characters in the show, like Fisto, Ram Man, etc., they're not named that in the movie. Instead, these are the names that Adam gave them when he was a cringe 10-year-old child. And all of the characters approach this as if this is cringe, like Ram Man, Fisto. What are you meaning? And at the end, they ask him what his name is, He-Man, and they all gather around and just laugh at him for a little bit, which, I mean, I get it, I do. It's a goddamn very old, very old series, a very old comic, and a very old universe, and it does sound cringe, but I don't know. It feels as if this was kind of a negotiation where they wanted to have this very good and very clever message, but they needed to add in enough little kicks and little stabs to the guts here and there to pass censor, I guess, or to make it not quite as serious as it perhaps should and could have been, as there are too many barbs. If they had simply just stuck to the core theses, I think this would have been an even better movie. But even as it is, it was tremendously enjoyable. Genuinely, it's a long movie, and I barely noticed. I never had that moment in, like, the Superman movie, for example, when I was genuinely looking at it and going like, okay, are we wrapping it up soon? No, there's another fight we're gonna go through there. Okay, then. And the fights, too, very satisfying, in large parts due to the dominance of He-Man. When he gathers his powers, he is actually a force to be reckoned with rather than a weakling. So, honestly, in total, I'm gonna have to give this like an 8 out of 10, maybe even an 8.5. Like, this is a good movie that I enjoyed tremendously, and with a very powerful and incredibly important message and central thrust that if they could have just delivered with a bit more determination, a bit more aplomb, and without being seemingly so ashamed of it, would have been, I believe, a genuine masterpiece. And I think, again, this is going to be a cult classic. This is almost certainly going to be a movie that you and I will remember for a very long time, and that people should be excited for, despite the fact that it near certainly is going to be a massive economic disaster. But that is not the fault of the movie at all, or the point, or the plot, or even the delivery, flawed though it may be. It is simply because it's a He-Man movie in 2026. It was poorly timed, and it was poorly marketed as well. If they had led with that, if that had actually been the point and purpose of the marketing as well, I guarantee you the entirety of the anti-woke sphere would have rallied behind this movie, as I hope and expect it will do now. So, an unexpected gem there. He-Man, Masters of the Universe. If you've got a chance to go watch it, do. You will almost certainly not regret it. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Have a good day.